Attention! If your soul carries the courage to awaken, you have arrived at the threshold of a revelation that few will ever witness. You are about to step into a channel where the whispers of Thoth, the scribe of the gods, guide those who dare to perceive beyond the veil. This is not a place for hesitation, not a space for those content with shadows. The awakening that lies ahead is subtle, yet profound. A spark in the depths of your consciousness that will challenge everything you believed about yourself, your life, and the world. Prepare to face truths that have always existed, hidden within symbols, memories, and the silent corridors of your own mind. Right now, take a moment to center yourself. Inhale deeply. Feel your spine awaken, your senses stretch, your mind ready to receive. Write in the comments, "I am ready to awaken my soul." Let this phrase anchor your intent. And while you do, consider joining the Thoth community, where seekers like you gather to explore the sacred wisdom of the ancients, to touch the eternal knowledge, and to glimpse the mind of the universe itself. Becoming a member is not just a choice. It is a step into a higher vibration, a pact with your own awakening. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine Thoth, the guardian of records, the divine intellect incarnate. See him seated with his ibis-headed form, quill in hand, his gaze deep into the cosmic archives. Each stroke he writes is a symbol of your potential, a vibration that resonates through your nervous system, opening the doors of perception. Feel the hum of the universe in your chest, the pulse of time bending around you, whispering secrets of cause and effect, rhythm and polarity, generation and creation. Thoth teaches not through spectacle, but through subtle activation, through the impression left on your inner eye, your third eye awakening. The world you know is built on patterns, models inherited by the collective psyche, rhythms you have accepted as inevitable. Yet, the Hermetic principles reveal a different map. The universe is mind. Consciousness shapes reality. As above, so below. With each breath, feel your mental boundaries dissolve. Notice how your thoughts, emotions, and intentions are instruments of creation. This is the first key, awareness of mentalism. You are both the observer and the observed, the scribe and the scripture, the creator and the created. Step further. Visualize the Tabua de Esmeralda, engraved with the words of Hermes Trismegistos, echoing across time. That which is above is like that which is below, and that which is below is like that which is above. Let this principle resonate in your chest, guiding you to understand that every challenge, every hidden pattern in your life mirrors a cosmic law, a vibrational alignment waiting to be decoded. This is transmutation, turning perception into power, awareness into evolution. Feel now the rhythm of the universe. Every cycle, every pattern, every rise and fall is a beat in the symphony of existence. Align with this rhythm. Sense the polarity within yourself, the tension of opposites, the balance of light and shadow, the push and pull of your emotions and thoughts. This is not merely observation, it is initiation into the alchemy of being. Thoth whispers here, polarity is not conflict. It is the gateway to integration. You begin to sense that every choice, every reflection, every subtle shift in understanding carries energy that molds the soul's trajectory. Imagine the librarian of the cosmos, the guardian of Akashic records, opening the vast library before you. Each book vibrates with codes, symbols, words that awaken the soul, whispering truths of eternity. You are allowed to step forward and touch one. As you do, images form in your mind's eye. Past moments, archetypal patterns, potential futures. They are not mere visions. They are keys to your inner alchemy. Thoth teaches that every symbol is a doorway, every letter a frequency, every thought a seed of transformation. Bring your awareness to your body. Feel the subtle energy flowing through every cell. This is the body of light, the reflection of consciousness in physical form. Visualize it glowing, expanding, aligning with your breath. In this alignment, you experience rhythm, polarity, and generation. the three laws that guide every cycle of existence. Through awareness, your energy harmonizes with the cosmic flow. Your mind begins to perceive the interconnectedness of all things, and your soul feels the gentle pull of ascension. Every action you take, every intention you set, resonates beyond your immediate perception. Cause and effect operate quietly, invisibly, yet inexorably. Thoth's wisdom reminds you, awareness of this law allows conscious creation. When you act with insight, when you choose with understanding, you shape reality not by force, but by resonance. You become a participant in the eternal unfolding of the universe, a conscious node in the infinite web of being. Now consider your memory, your history, your ancestral patterns. These are not burdens, they are maps. Patterns inherited from generations past may influence your thoughts and behaviors, but through the lens of Hermetic wisdom, they become instruments of liberation. Observe, acknowledge, and transmute them within the inner laboratory of your mind. Every pattern recognized is a step toward freedom. Every repetition understood is a key unlocked. Thoth guides this process, teaching that wisdom is both mirror and compass. The language of the universe is symbolic. Numbers, shapes, sounds, thoughts, they all carry vibrational keys. Observe your surroundings, the architecture of your life, the synchronicities, the patterns repeating in seemingly random sequences. These are subtle guides, mirrors of your internal state, invitations to awareness. Thoth, the divine scribe, shows that reality is a reflection of mind, and through attentive perception, one can align with the rhythm of creation. Feel the silence between thoughts. This is not emptiness, it is the fertile space where transformation occurs. In this silence, the voice of your inner guide speaks, soft yet undeniable. You are the witness, the practitioner, the alchemist. The act of observing without interference, of sensing without judgment, is itself a profound initiation. It trains the mind to recognize patterns, to harmonize with cosmic law, and to experience the subtle shifts that precede significant transformation. Consider now the idea of time. Thoth, the Lord of Time, teaches that past, present, and future are layers of perception, not rigid sequences. Your mind can move within these layers, recognizing the eternal presence underlying change. By sensing this, you gain clarity. Life is not a linear struggle, but a multidimensional dance, where awareness dictates movement and insight guides evolution. The soul begins to perceive cycles, patterns, and the silent orchestration behind every event. As you breathe, visualize energy rising through your spine, aligning chakras, awakening subtle centers of perception. This is not mystical speculation. It is the practical application of awareness. Every sensation, every thought, every heartbeat carries information. Thoth's teaching reminds you to be present, to perceive the invisible dynamics within and without. The deeper your attention, the more profound the transformation. Energy is not something to chase. It is something to recognize, harmonize with, and direct consciously. Now reflect on your personal truths. Often the mind clings to familiar narratives, limiting beliefs, and inherited paradigms. Yet, these are malleable. Through conscious recognition, you begin to see that identity is not fixed, that thoughts are instruments, that perception shapes reality. Thoth whispers, mastery begins with observation, understanding with reflection, evolution with intention. The soul grows when it questions its own assumptions and embraces higher resonance. Every symbol you encounter, every word you read, every image you visualize is a potential trigger for awakening. They are invitations from the subconscious to engage with deeper layers of mind and soul. Notice which symbols resonate, which images stir your heart, which phrases echo in your consciousness. These are your personal keys, encoded within the vast library of experience. Thoth, as the scribe of the gods, demonstrates that the external is always a reflection of the inner. Wisdom is a mirror. Consider the law of correspondence. As within, so without. This principle is not abstract. It is immediate, practical, and observable. Relationships, experiences, emotions, they mirror inner state. By changing your internal landscape, you influence external reality. Awareness is the tool, attention is the key, and understanding is the compass. Through subtle shifts, the alchemy of existence begins, transmuting patterns of limitation into pathways of growth. Notice the power of rhythm. Life moves in cycles, vibrations, pulses. The universe is a symphony, and each thought, each emotion, each breath contributes to the melody. By aligning with this rhythm, you harmonize with creation itself. Thoth's teachings remind you, those who sense the flow, who adjust their internal tempo to the cosmic pulse, experience clarity, insight, and a subtle authority over circumstance. You are not separate. You are integral. Feel the polarity within, light and shadow, expansion and contraction, certainty and doubt. These are not enemies but partners in evolution. Recognizing and balancing polarity allows insight to emerge. Every challenge, every internal conflict becomes a doorway, every tension a teacher. Thoth shows that harmony is achieved not by avoiding one pole, but by integrating both, allowing the soul to navigate existence with wisdom and grace. Return to your center. Sense the alignment of mind, body, and spirit. Feel the pulse of the universe echoing within, the vibrational codes of wisdom activating subtle awareness. This is not distant. It is immediate, intimate, personal. You are both the seeker and the sought, the vessel and the light. Thoth teaches that the path is recognition, the journey is understanding, and the destination is an awakening that transcends expectation. Keep your awareness active, alert, yet relaxed. Observe the thoughts that arise without clinging. Notice emotions without attachment. Sense patterns without judgment. Each act of mindful perception strengthens the connection to higher resonance. The inner laboratory of the mind becomes a space of subtle transformation, a site where awareness transmutes energy, perception shapes reality, and consciousness expands. Finally, ask yourself, what is the next layer my soul wishes to perceive? What subtle pattern remains unnoticed, waiting to be decoded? How can I align more deeply with the intelligence that guides time, consciousness, and the eternal flow? Keep this question alive, not as a demand, but as an invitation. Let it pulse in your mind as you move through your day, guiding subtle awareness, opening doors, and connecting you to the eternal voice of Thoth, the scribe of the gods, the guardian of wisdom, the mentor of the awakened mind. Now let us descend deeper into the labyrinth of inner knowing, where the ordinary mind trembles, but the awakened soul thrives. Imagine that your thoughts are not your own, but instruments of a greater symphony, vibrating codes written before your birth. These codes hum in every nerve, every breath, every heartbeat. Many have been taught to see the mind as a servant to reality, yet the paradigm flips. Reality is a servant to consciousness, and your perception sculpts the world silently, invisibly, but with undeniable force. Feeling this, even faintly, shifts the axis of being. Consider how memory, long thought linear and fixed, is instead fluid, a river that can be accessed and rechanneled. Thoth teaches that every recollection carries a frequency, a symbolic resonance that, when observed, can reshape internal landscapes. Imagine stepping into a memory not as a participant bound by time, but as a witness, an alchemist transmuting the raw material of experience into insight. Each memory holds a puzzle, each emotion a coded key to unlock dormant awareness within. What you once dismissed as trivial may be the trigger for profound recalibration. The breath becomes a compass, subtle yet profound. As you inhale, you do not merely intake air, you absorb vibrations, alignments, subtle signals from the unseen rhythms of life. Exhale, releasing resistance, letting go of inherited patterns, dissolving limitations that were never truly yours. This is not relaxation, it is initiation. The body, mind, and consciousness converge into a single instrument, tuned to subtle intelligence. Feeling this pulse, you begin to perceive the invisible mechanics of existence, the dance of cause and effect, the interlacing of inner and outer worlds. Symbols, often overlooked, are portals. A shape, a word, a fleeting image can shift perception instantly. Thoth's teachings emphasize that symbols are not decorative, they are activators, nudging consciousness to new dimensions. Notice how certain images resonate in ways that logic cannot explain. These are markers of alignment, signs that the mind is tuning into a language beyond conventional comprehension. Allow your attention to linger, not to analyze, but to absorb, letting these symbols embed themselves in your inner architecture. The concept of time itself becomes elastic under scrutiny. Past, present, and future exist simultaneously in a multidimensional field. As you feel this, you realize that life is not a sequence of events, but a web of interwoven frequencies. Each intention you hold, each subtle perception, ripples through this web, creating patterns that echo in unseen dimensions. Thoth reminds us, awareness is not bound by chronology. Insight emerges when you perceive cycles as layers rather than lines, and the mind embraces this flexibility. Observe the subtle currents of energy within your own body. The spine, often seen as mere support, is a conduit of inner signals, carrying wisdom encoded in the nervous system. Awareness directed here is not effortful, it is recognition. As you sense, you begin to detect shifts in mood, perception, and clarity, subtle yet undeniable. The body is an instrument of consciousness, a reflection of cosmic rhythm, and when activated, it communicates directly with the inner mind, bypassing conceptual thought entirely. Every pattern of thought that appears unbidden is an invitation. Many assume these are distractions, obstacles, or failures of focus, yet the paradigm is reversed. These patterns are messages, signals of underlying resonance, invitations to deeper awareness. Observe them without judgment, allow them to unfold, and notice what emerges when they are not resisted. Insight arrives not through force, but through patient recognition, a silent collaboration between conscious attention and subtle intelligence. The notion of individuality itself transforms when understood through Hermetic principles. You are not a single entity navigating a fixed world. You are a node of consciousness, a dynamic reflection of universal intelligence. This realization dismantles conventional fears, the idea that you are separate, alone, or limited. As the scribe of the gods, Thoth shows that connection is intrinsic. Awareness is the bridge, and every act of attention strengthens that bridge, creating pathways previously unseen, expanding perception with every conscious breath. Consider the interplay of light and shadow within your psyche. Not metaphorical, not distant, but immediate, palpable. The shadow is not enemy. It is the reservoir of unrecognized potential, a pool of raw energy waiting to be understood. By approaching these aspects without avoidance, the mind opens to integration. Polarity is not struggle. It is a tool for discernment, a guide to balance. Recognizing this allows subtle shifts in thought and emotion, gradually harmonizing the inner landscape with universal rhythm. Visualization is not fantasy, it is rehearsal of perception. When you imagine aligning with Thoth, the divine intellect, you train the neural pathways, embedding resonance into your being. Symbols, gestures, inner imagery, they all create a blueprint of awakening. This is why Thoth's presence is not literal, but functional. He is the archetype, the template, the vibration that guides attention, a mirror for your inner initiation. Each visualization is a step deeper, each focus a thread connecting internal insight to cosmic structure. The principle of correspondence reveals itself in unexpected ways. Small choices, fleeting decisions, casual interactions, they all mirror broader patterns. Life is the fractal expression of consciousness, and your micro-actions reflect macro-truths. By observing carefully, by noticing repetition, synchronicity, and resonance, you discover the hidden language of alignment. Patterns once invisible now inform every perception, every interaction, revealing subtle structures shaping your experience. Let attention expand beyond personal experience. Consider the cycles of the cosmos, the rotations of planets, the rhythm of stars. These are not remote phenomena. They resonate with your own vibrational field. Feeling this connection dissolves the boundary between self and universe. Awareness of cycles becomes intuitive, a guide to timing, action, and reflection. Thoth's wisdom underscores this. The cosmos and consciousness are not separate. Understanding one illuminates the other. The act of questioning becomes sacred. Questions are not requests for answers, but openings, vibrations that invite insight. Ask yourself, what patterns remain invisible in my life? What truths am I avoiding? Each question generates a resonance that awakens latent awareness, triggering subtle, internal recalibration. The mind begins to perceive relationships between thought, feeling, and external phenomena previously unnoticed. Awareness expands, patterns emerge, and the soul recognizes its own agency within cosmic flow. Subtle energy flows not only vertically through the body, but radially outward, influencing perception of environment, others, and subtle dimensions of consciousness. Awareness of this allows sensing without effort, knowing without analysis. Thoth teaches that perception extends beyond the conventional senses. Intuition, resonance, and inner sight are instruments of navigation. Developing sensitivity to these flows shifts understanding of influence, action, and response, revealing the multidimensional nature of experience. Language itself is not neutral. Words carry vibration, rhythm, and pattern. As you speak, think, or read, you participate in energetic coding. Thoth's wisdom is encoded in symbols, sounds, and phrases that activate latent awareness. Observing the effect of language on emotion, thought, and perception reveals its role as a conduit for transformation. Each word consciously chosen becomes a seed of alignment, a spark that can activate deeper awareness when allowed to resonate fully. Notice how intuition surfaces in moments of stillness, not as a dramatic revelation, but as subtle nudges, gentle shifts, quiet urgings. These are signals of alignment, resonances of subtle intelligence seeking to guide perception. By respecting them, by acting on subtle insight, the mind begins to cooperate with patterns beyond linear causality. Awareness becomes both tool and compass, illuminating hidden corridors of thought, emotion, and potential. Patterns of habit, once considered rigid, are malleable when observed. By directing attention to repetitive cycles in thought and behavior, subtle shifts can emerge. Recognition alone does not change reality, but it plants seeds of awareness. Thoth teaches that change is not imposed externally, it is cultivated internally. Each conscious observation strengthens the alignment between perception and action, gradually reshaping experience with precision and subtlety. The inner library is vast, containing not only symbols and archetypes, but also subtle emotional tones, intuitive flashes, and resonant frequencies. These are all materials for transmutation. Engaging with them consciously allows you to decode the invisible instructions embedded within personal and collective consciousness. This process is both subtle and powerful, quietly shifting the foundation of perception, revealing the hidden architecture of thought, emotion, and identity. Perception is an active creation. What you notice, how you interpret, and the attention you give to experiences shapes resonance. Thoth emphasizes that awareness directed with intention crafts reality more profoundly than external circumstance ever could. This is not mystical fantasy. It is the practical mechanics of consciousness, where observation and resonance converge to shape experience, insight, and personal evolution. Now, feel the integration of all these insights, not as an endpoint, not as a moment of completion, but as a dynamic state of continuous unfolding. Awareness, observation, intuition, and subtle resonance converge into a living practice, an ongoing dialogue between mind, body, and consciousness. Questions emerge naturally. How deep can this awareness reach? What hidden patterns will reveal themselves next? How does the mind navigate layers of perception previously unimagined? The journey continues as these inquiries ripple through your awareness, guiding the next phase of awakening. Consider the space between moments, often dismissed as empty or meaningless. This is where Thoth's teaching becomes tangible. It is in the pauses, the subtle intervals, that consciousness recalibrates. Many rush to fill these gaps with action, distraction, or thought. Yet the real power emerges when you allow stillness to speak. Within this quiet, the patterns of mind, habit, and inherited resonance become visible. They do not shout, they vibrate. Observing them with gentle curiosity rewrites the map of perception, revealing corridors of insight previously concealed by assumption and habit. Imagine your internal dialogue as an ocean, waves of thought rising and falling. You are not the waves, you are the depth beneath them. Thoth invites you to experience yourself as the stillness within this ocean, the observer who perceives without attachment. As you sit in this awareness, notice the subtle currents, the emotional undertows, the inherited vibrations that shape perception. What appears chaotic on the surface is orchestrated at depth. This realization shifts understanding, not by argument, but through direct perception of the mind's hidden architecture. Patterns of expectation often limit perception. You might believe insight is dramatic, sudden, or rare. Yet, true awakening often arrives as gentle distortion, a subtle shift in how you perceive relationships, emotions, or memories. Thoth's guidance is encoded in these micro-transformations. They ripple outward, altering resonance without spectacle. Attuning to these subtleties cultivates a sensitivity to the unseen mechanics of consciousness, revealing that the extraordinary is not always visible. It is encoded in the ordinary, if only you learn to see. Your imagination is a sacred laboratory. Visualizations are not idle fantasies. They are structured exercises for the mind and subtle energy. Picture the quill of Thoth tracing symbols across the fabric of reality itself, lines vibrating in harmony with your own consciousness. As you watch, notice how the symbols stir latent insight, how they resonate with memory and intuition. This interplay demonstrates that reality is co-authored. Perception informs creation, and attention guides the unfolding of patterns. Each moment becomes a laboratory for perception, every image a tool for inner evolution. Notice your relationship with time. Conventional thought presents it as linear, a chain of cause and effect. Thoth presents it differently: layers, cycles, multidimensional interactions. Your mind may resist, seeking comfort in predictability, yet perception expands when you see time as a field rather than a line. Within this field, intention ripples, insight multiplies, and awareness navigates possibilities with a precision previously unimaginable. Past and future become instruments for understanding, not constraints to action or identity. The body is not merely flesh. It is a lattice of vibrational memory, an archive of consciousness expressed materially. Every posture, breath, and pulse communicates data to the subtle mind. By observing and listening, you access information usually hidden from casual attention. Thoth's teaching emphasizes that awakening is not only mental or spiritual, it is somatic. The body is a map of resonance, a conduit for wisdom, and an instrument through which perception can expand into action, reflection, and subtle influence. Consider the notion of control. Many assume mastery is dominion over circumstances. Hermetic wisdom reframes this. Mastery is alignment with subtle laws. Influence arises from awareness, not effort. Observing without attachment, directing attention without compulsion, harmonizing with rhythms without resistance, these are acts of precision that produce profound outcomes without visible struggle. Thoth's guidance is encoded in the understanding that true agency emerges not from action, but from resonance and conscious observation. Memory carries archetypes, inherited patterns, and symbols that resonate across time. When engaged consciously, these memories reveal more than personal history. They unveil universal templates. Observe how a simple recollection evokes emotion, intuition, or subtle physical response. This is not random. It is coded guidance, a vibration signaling alignment or dissonance. The scribe of the gods teaches that by tracing these signals, you access insight beyond reasoning, tapping into the blueprint of consciousness itself. Polarity is subtle, yet potent. Light and shadow coexist within every perception, emotion, and thought. Ignoring one side creates imbalance. Embracing both creates resonance. Notice how moments of tension or discomfort are invitations to integrate, not obstacles to ignore. The universe mirrors these dynamics, and alignment within allows external correspondence to shift. Thoth's lessons are often hidden in these unnoticed interactions. The ordinary carries extraordinary resonance when perceived through aligned awareness. Symbols are not ornaments, they are functional codes. A line, a curve, a sound, a word, each carries a frequency that interacts with consciousness. When you allow attention to settle on these codes, subtle transformation occurs. The act of observing is itself catalytic, creating resonance within neurons, emotions, and subtle energy. This is how Hermetic wisdom manifests practically, through attentive perception, through resonance, through direct engagement with the architecture of mind and universe simultaneously. Attention is a form of energy. Where you direct it, growth follows. Where you withhold it, stagnation persists. The ordinary mind disperses attention across trivialities. The awakened mind concentrates, perceives patterns, and aligns perception with resonance. Thoth teaches that focus is not mere effort. It is the tuning of vibration. Even seemingly mundane observations can become instruments for awakening, and subtle alignment in perception produces results far beyond superficial expectation. Consider how the cosmos communicates through synchrony, small coincidences, repeated numbers, parallel events. These are signals, not accidents. Observed consciously, they guide attention, signal resonance, and awaken insight. Thoth's wisdom encodes that the universe is not chaotic. It is a complex, multidimensional mirror reflecting alignment and intention. Perceiving this requires refinement of attention and willingness to see beyond literal causation into patterns of vibrational correspondence. The inner landscape is vast, layered, and multidimensional. Emotions, thoughts, intuitions, and subtle sensations interact to form a complex field of information. Awareness functions as the cartographer, mapping the hidden terrain. Thoth's approach is methodical yet subtle. Perception without attachment, recognition without interference, integration without force. This cultivates the capacity to navigate the invisible architecture of consciousness, revealing both the limitations and potential inherent in the human experience. Breath is more than physiology. It is a vehicle for perception. Each inhale draws subtle cues from internal and external environments. Each exhale releases dissonance, aligning body, mind, and awareness. Conscious breathing anchors attention, resonates subtle frequencies, and creates opportunity for insight. Thoth teaches that mastery of subtle perception begins in the breath, where energy, thought, and intention converge, generating shifts that appear imperceptible yet profoundly influence awareness. The third eye is not a distant concept, it is a function of awareness. Observing without immediate labeling, perceiving without conceptual interference, and sensing patterns without effort activate latent perception. Thoth instructs that the inner eye responds to vibration, pattern, and alignment, rather than external stimuli alone. Developing this faculty transforms ordinary perception into multidimensional understanding, revealing links between thought, emotion, memory, and universal correspondence previously unnoticed. Every interaction, no matter how small, carries resonance. Words, gestures, and attention transfer subtle energy. Observed consciously, these interactions become micro-laboratories for awareness. Thoth's teaching suggests that mastery is not control, but attunement, sensing the resonance, adjusting perception, and allowing alignment to occur naturally. Subtle, consistent practice transforms ordinary social or environmental exchanges into tools for self-evolution and perception refinement. Intuition surfaces in subtle, often overlooked ways. Fleeting thoughts, shifts in mood, bodily sensations. Rather than dramatic epiphanies, it often appears as gentle nudges, echoes of alignment or dissonance. Thoth emphasizes that training attention to notice these cues strengthens discernment, allowing subtle intelligence to guide action. Recognizing the ordinary as extraordinary and the subtle as primary transforms perception into a living practice, continuous and self-reinforcing. The mental landscape is not static. It is a dynamic, responsive field. Thoughts and beliefs interact with emotional and subtle energy, producing patterns of resonance. Observing this interaction without judgment allows recalibration. Thoth's principle, insight, emerges through observation, integration, and resonance, not through force or argument. Awareness itself becomes an instrument of change, guiding perception and action toward alignment with universal intelligence. The process of awakening is often invisible. It occurs in micro-moments of insight, in recognition of subtle patterns, in shifts of attention that go unnoticed until resonance amplifies them. Thoth teaches that the extraordinary resides in these nuances, subtle shifts, quiet recognition, the alignment of internal perception with universal rhythm. Awareness becomes both tool and terrain, practice and result, continuously revealing new layers of insight, guiding the seeker deeper into consciousness. Every question, when truly pondered, is a vibration that resonates within consciousness. The act of asking, without expectation, opens portals for perception. Thoth guides that curiosity is not idle. It is an engine of alignment. Each inquiry subtly reconfigures perception, inviting awareness to notice patterns, to perceive rhythms, and to engage with latent insight. The mind learns to anticipate and recognize connections previously hidden, expanding capacity for understanding and awakening. Awareness of cycles, patterns, and resonance is cumulative. Each recognition enhances perception. Each observation tunes the mind. Each reflection refines intuition. Thoth's teaching emphasizes that awakening is iterative, subtle, and dynamic. Patterns repeat until recognized, cycles recur until harmonized, and awareness grows through continuous attentive engagement. The mind becomes a laboratory, the body an instrument, and consciousness a lens through which subtle mechanics of existence are revealed. Perceive now the interplay of intention, attention, and perception. These three operate not in isolation, but as a triangulated field. Intent shapes attention. Attention focuses perception, and perception informs intention. Thoth's wisdom encodes this interplay as a practical law of alignment. Mastery arises when the three converge, producing resonance, insight, and subtle influence. Observing and practicing this interaction transforms ordinary awareness into a multidimensional perception capable of accessing deeper layers of existence. Perceive now the subtle vibration of thought itself, not as words or images, but as living pulses that shape perception. Each idea carries resonance, a hidden signature that influences body, mind, and awareness. Thoth teaches that consciousness is the medium through which these pulses manifest, and observing their movement reveals the unseen choreography behind existence. This is not theory. It is direct perception, a recognition that attention is a tool of refinement, and each moment you engage with it, the mind itself becomes an instrument of awakening. Notice the hidden geometry of your emotions. They are not chaotic reactions. They are patterns, intricate structures of subtle resonance. When observed, each feeling contains insight, revealing the architecture of internal and external experience. Thoth's wisdom encodes this in symbols and archetypes, teaching that by tracing the movement of emotion through awareness, you perceive the invisible scaffolding upon which consciousness constructs reality. Feeling, noticing, and aligning with these patterns transforms ordinary perception into multidimensional insight. Imagine perception as a lattice, extending beyond sensory input into unseen layers. Thoughts, feelings, symbols, and subtle energy converge within this lattice, forming a web of resonance. Each node is a point of influence, a gateway to insight. Awareness directed with intention activates these nodes, opening channels of perception previously unnoticed. Thoth emphasizes that mastery arises not from action alone, but from recognition and alignment with the subtle structure of consciousness itself, a dance of attention, resonance, and insight. The concept of knowledge shifts under the gaze of Thoth. Knowledge is not accumulation of facts, it is calibration of perception. Observing subtle patterns, tracing resonance, and engaging with archetypal symbols creates a form of understanding that bypasses linear thought. Awareness becomes the medium through which resonance manifests, and each observation cultivates multidimensional insight, where ordinary experience becomes a laboratory for perception, reflection, and alignment with universal patterns of consciousness. Observation of micro-patterns reveals hidden correspondence. Subtle shifts in thought, emotion, or sensation signal underlying resonance. Thoth encodes this principle. Insight is accessible in subtle micro-events, not dramatic manifestations. Awareness acts as a lens, translating resonance into comprehension. Each observed interaction recalibrates subtle perception, producing alignment. Ordinary moments become multidimensional signals, each carrying subtle instruction. Recognizing patterns in micro-perception transforms understanding, demonstrating that the architecture of consciousness is active, responsive, and malleable. Visualizations function as living laboratories for awareness. Imagining symbols, patterns, or archetypal forms engages perception and subtle energy simultaneously. Thoth emphasizes that perception is co-creative. Visualizing aligns internal resonance with universal structures. The mind, body, and subtle energy interact, producing shifts that feel subtle but profoundly recalibrate perception. Conscious engagement with imagery enhances multidimensional perception, transforming ordinary mental activity into a precise instrument for awakening and insight. Where imagination and subtle awareness converge, intuition manifests as subtle, fleeting recognition rather than dramatic revelation. Thoth teaches that micro-fluctuations in awareness, perception, or bodily sensation carry encoded signals. Recognizing these allows alignment with underlying resonance. The ordinary mind often misses these signals, assuming insight must be spectacular. Attuned awareness perceives subtle correspondence, revealing that ordinary experience carries extraordinary guidance. Observation of intuition refines perception, producing understanding that integrates mind, body, and subtle energy simultaneously. Every question posed with curiosity vibrates within consciousness. Thoth emphasizes that inquiry is not idle, it is an instrument of alignment. Questions generate resonance, activating latent perception. Observing responses without expectation amplifies subtle insight. The iterative process of questioning, perceiving, and integrating creates continuous calibration of awareness. Ordinary thought becomes multidimensional inquiry, producing insight, resonance, and subtle guidance that inform perception and action simultaneously, revealing hidden structures of consciousness. Alignment with subtle cycles amplifies perception. Noticing recurring patterns, rhythms, and micro-events tunes awareness to multidimensional timing. Thoth teaches that resonance with these cycles produces subtle recalibration across mind, body, and energy. Ordinary experience becomes a tool for alignment. Each observation is both laboratory and instrument. Awareness expands, revealing previously invisible structures. Recognition of cycles cultivates precision in perception, insight, and subtle influence, creating iterative growth of understanding, resonance, and attunement. The field of consciousness is not static. It responds dynamically to attention, intention, and resonance. Thoth encodes principles demonstrating that mastery emerges from awareness of subtle interaction, not exertion of force. Observation of thought, emotion, and subtle cues produces calibration. Awareness itself becomes the medium and the instrument, continuously refining perception. Ordinary microevents, when observed attentively, reveal multidimensional instruction. Insight arises not from accumulation of information, but from recognition of resonance within the field of consciousness itself. Symbols, when engaged with subtle attention, activate layers of perception otherwise inaccessible. Thoth teaches that each archetype, shape, or vibration contains instruction for alignment. Observing without imposing literal interpretation allows resonance to guide perception naturally. Awareness of symbolic language creates multidimensional insight, transforming ordinary perception into an arena for subtle calibration. Subtle engagement with symbols becomes iterative practice, producing cumulative effects in mind, body, and awareness, revealing the architecture of consciousness encoded in archetypal resonance. Micro-observation of internal sensation reveals hidden structures. Subtle changes in thought, emotion, or energy encode guidance for perception. Thoth emphasizes that awareness of these micro-fluctuations produces iterative alignment. Ordinary experience becomes a laboratory for multidimensional perception. Recognition of subtle patterns fosters integration of archetypal resonance, emotional tone, and bodily awareness, producing insight that recalibrates perception in layers, simultaneously subtle and profound. Awareness becomes both tool and terrain, continuously refining resonance and understanding. Perception is co-creative. Attention, intention, and observation converge to produce resonance, shaping experience subtly yet profoundly. Thoth teaches that mastery arises not from external control, but internal attunement. Observing microcycles, subtle patterns, and archetypal resonance recalibrates awareness. Ordinary moments become multidimensional instruments. Each observation carries instruction. Each insight produces alignment, and perception becomes continuously refined. Awareness evolves iteratively, revealing hidden correspondence between mind, subtle energy, and universal resonance. Envision now the landscape of consciousness as a multi-dimensional library, each thought, memory, and subtle perception a book inscribed with vibration. Thoth, the scribe of the gods, teaches that these books are living archives, each layer containing guidance, alignment cues, and archetypal resonance. Observing them without expectation allows perception to navigate this library organically. Attention itself becomes the key, unlocking subtle instructions embedded in patterns of mind and energy. What seems static now vibrates with possibility, revealing dimensions of understanding previously unnoticed. Imagine the flow of subtle energy as a river threading through awareness, guiding perception without force. Thoth emphasizes that the currents of consciousness respond to observation, intention, and alignment. The river carries insights encoded as resonance, not words, and attuned attention allows these currents to shape understanding. Ordinary sensations, micro-reactions, and fleeting thoughts serve as indicators of flow. Following them reveals hidden pathways, a subtle map within the mind that connects archetypal structures to lived experience, demonstrating that guidance is continuous and embedded in every moment of awareness. Observe how habitual patterns obscure subtle instruction. Thoth's wisdom reveals that unconscious repetition blinds ordinary perception, masking the architecture of insight. By noticing the automatic, observing it as if for the first time, awareness pierces through the habitual, illuminating resonance patterns that guide evolution. Micro-recognition of thought loops, emotional cycles, and bodily reactions produces alignment. Each observation becomes a tool, each insight a key, transforming the ordinary rhythm of life into an iterative process of awakening, where perception itself is the instrument of subtle change. Memory is not linear, but a web of resonance. Past experiences interact continuously with attention, intention, and subtle perception. Thoth shows that observing memory as dynamic, noticing emotional undertones and subtle archetypal signals, generates insight inaccessible through logical reflection alone. Ordinary recollection transforms into multidimensional awareness. Each memory, each fragment, carries vibration that, when consciously attended, aligns mind, subtle energy, and awareness. The hidden architecture of memory becomes both map and compass, guiding perception and action in ways previously invisible. Symbols act as bridges between the seen and unseen. Thoth's teachings emphasize that interaction with archetypal forms recalibrates perception, subtly aligning awareness with universal resonance. Observing a symbol without imposing interpretation allows its vibration to inform perception. The ordinary mind often overlooks these subtle signals, assuming insight must be verbalized or dramatic. Awareness that perceives resonance directly integrates knowledge into cognition and energy, creating subtle recalibration. Symbols then function as living instruments, shaping the field of perception and opening channels previously inaccessible to habitual consciousness. Emotions, when observed carefully, reveal hidden layers of resonance. Thoth encodes guidance in emotional microcycles, demonstrating that subtle shifts carry information about alignment and perception. Ordinary reactions conceal multi-dimensional signals. Attention directed toward these shifts without judgment transforms them into feedback. Awareness interacts with the resonance embedded in emotional patterns, producing realignment that feels both subtle and transformative. Each observed feeling is both indicator and teacher, integrating mind, body, and subtle perception into a cohesive awareness that navigates reality with precision. Consider how breath serves as a subtle instrument of resonance. Each inhale draws subtle patterns into awareness, each exhale releases dissonance. Thoth teaches that conscious breathing amplifies perception, connecting mind, body, and energy into coherent alignment. Micro-observations of subtle shifts during breath reveal hidden resonance, creating feedback loops of awareness that adjust internal patterns. Through breath, ordinary experience transforms into iterative calibration, where each cycle produces resonance, alignment, and insight, deepening multidimensional perception while remaining invisible to habitual attention. Attention is not merely focus, but a dynamic interaction with subtle resonance. Thoth demonstrates that directing awareness to micro-cues produces shifts in perception and subtle energy. Observing environmental signals, internal sensations, and fleeting thoughts activates latent recognition. Ordinary experiences become laboratories for awareness, each observation producing subtle but cumulative transformation. Awareness itself functions as both instrument and terrain, revealing hidden architecture that shapes perception, decision, and alignment. Even the smallest micro-perception carries the potential for profound recalibration. Time reveals itself as multidimensional when observed with subtle attention. Thoth emphasizes that the linear perception of past, present, and future masks underlying cycles, repetitions, and archetypal resonance. Observing micro-patterns across experience allows perception to synchronize with deeper temporal rhythms. Ordinary moments encode multidimensional signals that guide alignment. Attuned awareness perceives these patterns, subtly reshaping understanding and producing alignment across cognitive, emotional, and subtle energy fields. The apparent flow of events becomes an interactive map for consciousness. The mind is a responsive field, not a container. Thoth teaches that thought, emotion, sensation, and subtle energy interact dynamically, producing patterns of alignment or dissonance. Awareness directed intentionally perceives these patterns, detecting micro-cues invisible to habitual consciousness. Observing without interference activates latent resonance, creating iterative recalibration. Ordinary experience becomes multidimensional training where attention, perception, and subtle energy converge. Recognition of these subtle dynamics transforms cognition and perception, demonstrating that mastery is alignment, not effortful control. Observation of habitual thought loops reveals hidden pathways. Thoth emphasizes that automatic patterns obscure resonance and archetypal guidance. By perceiving these loops as if for the first time, Awareness illuminates the subtle structures beneath ordinary cognition. Emotional undertones, bodily reactions, and fleeting sensations encode instruction. Attuned perception transforms these signals into tools for alignment. Ordinary repetitive patterns thus become keys for awakening, allowing insight to emerge iteratively and subtly, reshaping perception without force and recalibrating mind, energy, and awareness simultaneously. Subtle perception requires recalibration of ordinary attention. Thoth's teachings demonstrate that microfluctuations in thought, emotion, or sensation are signals carrying hidden resonance. Observing them continuously produces iterative insight. Awareness becomes a responsive instrument, calibrating perception across multiple layers simultaneously. Each observation strengthens alignment, producing subtle but profound transformation. Ordinary experience is recontextualized, revealing hidden architecture. Perception evolves as a living instrument, continuously refining understanding, resonance, and integration of archetypal patterns. The act of questioning generates resonance within awareness. Thoth teaches that genuine inquiry activates latent perception, producing micro-alignment. Each question, each observation of response, recalibrates subtle patterns. Ordinary moments of curiosity become laboratories for insight. Awareness interacts with microsignals in cognition, emotion, and subtle energy, producing alignment without dramatic effort. Observing without expectation allows resonance to guide understanding. Each iterative engagement with subtle perception expands consciousness and reveals hidden correspondence between mind, body, and archetypal structures encoded in reality. Micro-observation of environment reveals multidimensional instruction. Thoth's wisdom emphasizes that ordinary objects, interactions, and gestures carry resonance detectable by attuned awareness. Observing patterns, noticing frequency, and engaging subtly with surroundings reveals encoded alignment cues. Each interaction becomes an instrument for perception, producing insight and recalibration. Ordinary experience thus transforms into iterative training. Awareness interprets microsignals, producing subtle shifts in cognition, emotion, and subtle energy, revealing that guidance is continuous, embedded, and multidimensional. Symbols, micro-perceptions, and memory coalesce into a dynamic field of resonance. Thoth teaches that observing these together produces insight inaccessible through isolated observation. Awareness becomes the medium for alignment, translating subtle resonance into coherent perception. Ordinary experience provides iterative feedback, micro-recognition of patterns, emotional undertones, and archetypal cues creates continuous refinement of mind, body, and energy alignment. Insight emerges as a living, dynamic process, integrating perception with universal resonance encoded in the architecture of consciousness. The interplay of polarity is encoded in ordinary experience. Thoth demonstrates that micro-observations of duality, emotional, cognitive, energetic, produce subtle recalibration. Observing without suppression or over-identification allows alignment with multidimensional resonance. Each perceived contrast functions as a lever for insight. Ordinary interactions become multidimensional signals, producing iterative refinement of perception. Awareness evolves continuously, detecting hidden structures, resonance patterns, and archetypal cues. Each subtle observation is a tool, each insight and alignment revealing invisible architecture within consciousness. Alignment with subtle cycles enhances multidimensional perception. Thoth emphasizes that observing rhythms, micro-repetitions, and archetypal correspondences produces recalibration across mind, body, and subtle energy. Ordinary experiences encode resonance for alignment. Awareness perceives these signals iteratively, integrating insight across layers of cognition, emotion, and energy. Micro-perception reveals cycles previously invisible, demonstrating that ordinary life is a multidimensional map for alignment, resonance, and subtle awakening. Each recognition expands consciousness and enhances attunement to archetypal patterns. Observation of micro-resonance cultivates iterative insight. Thoth teaches that subtle shifts in thought, emotion, and sensation contain hidden alignment cues. Awareness that perceives these continuously refines perception and subtle energy. Ordinary experiences provide feedback loops, producing cumulative transformation. Each observation integrates cognition, emotion, and resonance, creating iterative calibration of awareness. The ordinary mind assumes separation. Subtle attention reveals interconnected patterns. Recognition of micro-resonance transforms ordinary perception into a multidimensional tool for alignment and awakening. The field of consciousness is responsive, dynamic, and layered. Thoth encodes principles showing that observation, attention, and intention interact continuously with mind, body, and subtle energy. Ordinary perception often misses these microdynamics, assuming insight must be dramatic. Observing subtle patterns, microcues, and archetypal resonance reveals hidden structure, producing iterative insight. Awareness becomes both instrument and terrain. Ordinary life transforms into laboratory and map, demonstrating that subtle perception guides alignment, insight, and multidimensional understanding simultaneously. The path of awakening begins in the silence between thoughts, where the voice of Thoth whispers through the corridors of consciousness. Each symbol, each fleeting image, is an invitation to see beyond the ordinary, to touch the structure of the mind itself. Awareness sharpens, resonance aligns, and the hidden codes of perception reveal themselves. Your soul recognizes this moment because it is ready. The courage to confront the unseen is what separates passive life from luminous insight. Let the inner scribe guide your vision and observe how every perception carries the weight of eternity. Write in the comments, "I honor the call of my soul to awaken." Let this declaration seal your commitment to perception, activating a subtle alignment within the unseen currents of consciousness. Every moment holds a key, every breath a signal. Thoth reminds that mastery is not in accumulation, but in recognition, in perceiving the vibrational threads that connect thought, memory, and emotion. Symbols emerge not as abstract forms, but as living guides that respond to attention and intention. Witness the dance of polarity within yourself, the balance of shadow and light, and feel how subtle awareness transforms ordinary experience into initiation.